Okay, this is Attorney Nate Amendola, Criminal Law in Plain English. The question or topic of discussion today is how to address a judge and three things not to do when you're in front of a judge. So here's what I want you to think about this. This should be obvious to people, but sometimes it's not. Judges are people, which means they are subject to the same issues that you are. Sometimes they're in a bad mood, sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're tired, sometimes they've had no caffeine, sometimes they've had too much, sometimes they've had a fight with their spouse, maybe they're going through a divorce, whatever, right? The same issues that plague all of us, every human, plagues a judge. So you've got to think about that when you go into court, okay? I subscribe to the general philosophy that you catch more bees with honey. Uh, that is that's how we work at this firm. There are other lawyers that practice in a different way, and I'm not saying that's bad, but that's just how we do it, and I strongly believe this. A long time ago, when I was a youngster coming up, I think I was still in high school. My dad had me read this great book, and I've recommended this many times in my newsletters, in other videos. But the book is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I think it's from like the 1930s and the 1940s. Possible it's older. It's a classic. Everybody should read that, whether you're a lawyer, a business person, in the trades. It's just really a great book. And I think what's so great about the book is the basic premise is just be nice and normal and interested in people. You've got to know when to be acrimonious and when to bear the fangs, so to speak. But just treat people with kindness and respect. Really, everybody deserves that, even people who are prosecuting you. And we're going to talk about that later. But so I think the general rule for me at least is when you're in court, just act politely and act nice and professional. Okay, courts, particularly federal courts, and state courts too, but it's there's really serious business going on. People's lives are changed and ruined, or you know, or opportunities are created in courts. They're particularly the American system. It has been around. Our justice system has been around for hundreds of years, and even what we adopted it from in the English system is even older than that. So there's all these. It's steeped in tradition. I mean, that's changing a little bit now, but it's a place. People still like me. Still wear suits and dress appropriately. So you want to address a judge with great deference, all right, and you want to be even if the judge is being rude, which happens, and of course it's like anything else. There's some really nice, honest judges. Lots of them I like to think are like that. And there's some people that just are having a little bit of difficulty on the bench. If you can avoid those people, you should do it. So the first thing you want to avoid is you don't want to interrupt the judge. When a judge is talking to you or your lawyer or whomever, it's really important to let the judge finish what they're saying, even if they're asking you a question or saying something that's wrong. So if they say, for example, Mr. Johnny Defendant, this is the fourth time that you've been in court. You've defaulted three times. I'm sick of this, chicanery. What you don't want to do, or what your lawyer really shouldn't do, is jump up and down and say, no, 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 it's just been twice and I've defaulted once or I haven't defaulted. You don't want to do that right as the judge is saying this, but you want to let the judge finish, and then you want to address the judge. Your Honor, I understand the court just informed me or perhaps inquired as to the number of court appearances I've missed or whatever. I'd just like to tell you that's actually not what happened. I was here on this day, and this day. Okay? So don't interrupt the judge. Let him or her talk. Think about what he or she is saying, and then don't react, but respond. All right? This is really, really important. Judges, like anybody else, want to be treated with respect, even if they're not respecting you, which is really difficult, but I think that's a superpower, right? And I think that's why some lawyers whom may not be as smart or as intelligent as another lawyer has this emotional intelligence that makes him or her really successful because they are able to read a judge. So, rule number one, or mistake to avoid, is don't interrupt the judge. The second tip or thing to avoid is you don't dress like you're coming off the street, right? I think now, especially with people working from home and whatnot, it's really common to see people wearing sandals and shorts and t-shirts, everywhere, right? But especially in court, which just boggles my mind. I'm not saying you've got to wear a suit and tie, although if you have one, you should wear it. I think there's a difference of opinion on this. This is just my opinion, the way we run this firm. If you got a suit, I mean, obviously the lawyers wear this, but if you're a criminal defendant, wear a suit if you've got one, or wear a shirt and tie if you have one. If you don't, you should wear a collared shirt, tucked in a nice pair of pants, a belt that matches the color of your shoes. All right. This is really, really important because, again, you are showing the court respect by dressing appropriately, and you're showing the court that you're taking this matter seriously. This is the little stuff that people miss all the time. These little social cues that are really, really important for the success of your case. Because a lot of the time, and unless you're in front of a jury, who's making the decisions in the room? Yes, the prosecutor relative to charging decisions and so on and so forth. We're going to talk about that in another video. But it's the judge. The judge is making the decision or decisions. So why would you not do everything you can to positively influence the judge? And little things like dressing well and not like a slob, like you just came off the street, is really important. Again, this probably seems basic to a lot of people, but it's really, really important. I think that's particularly true we do a lot of juvenile defense. And so that's kids between 12 and 18. And the parents ask a lot, should my Johnny wear a suit or a dress? Yeah, if they've got one, put it on, right? I mean, it's going to do nothing but help, okay? So tip number 3, don't talk about your case in open court. So this sort of dovetails into the first tip, which is don't interrupt the judge. But what you don't want to be doing is you don't want to get in this fight, this back and forth with the judge, okay? Talking about the facts of your case. Now, this is obviously, if you have an attorney, and you should, I'm not saying it needs to be our firm, but you really should have an attorney for you, present for you in court. What you don't want to do is get in this discussion, if you can avoid it, with your attorney about in open court, sort of going back and forth with your lawyer, and going back and forth with the prosecutor and going back and forth with the judge. I mean, there's certainly times for that, and knowing when to do that is what I think makes a good attorney. So you don't want to, there's a microphone that can pick up, we've all heard your hot mics, and there's a microphone that can pick stuff up. You don't want to be jawboning about your case in open court. You don't want to be telling the judge that he or she is wrong on the facts and get into some sort of argument. I see this all the time with pro se defendants. It's defendants that represent themselves in criminal court in Massachusetts. You have to sign a waiver that you have a right to be represented by an attorney, and despite that, you have chosen to go it on your own. I see pro se defendants do this all the time because they don't know, right? And they're not in court often or ever, and they don't understand how this works. And they start talking about statements that they've made or things that they've done. You see this sometimes with like a probation violation where maybe somebody, for whatever reason, is ordered to say drug and alcohol free. For whatever reason, they've tested positive for drug or alcohol or some substance that they're not supposed to be on. There's an issue in court about whether they violated their conditions of release or conditions of probation, and then they admit it open in court. Well, yes, I did consume this substance last night. It's like you've just stepped into a booby trap, right? That's why you have an attorney. Your attorney will speak for you. That's literally what we do. So I think, here's how I want you to think about this. Overall, take court seriously. It's a place, it's hallowed halls, so to speak. It's a place of, great deference to the court and traditions and so on and so forth. Look, you may not agree with them, but you're not going to change those rules right now. So just go in there and be a nice, normal, respectful person. Don't interrupt the judge. Dress smartly, okay? And don't talk about your case in open court. That's all you got to do. Attorney Nate Amendola, criminal law and plain English.